It's funny, looking back, how completely you can lose yourself. Not in some dramatic movie-esque fashion, but slowly, imperceptibly, like sand sifting through an hourglass until there's nothing left but a faint outline of the person you once were. My name is Christopher. I'm 38, and for most of my adult life I thought I had a pretty good handle on who I was. I owned a boutique coffee roastery in Portland, a place I'd built bean by bean, late night by late night. It was more than a business. It was a sanctuary, a canvas for my quiet passion. I loved the meticulous process, the way a humble green bean could transform into something rich and complex, capable of bringing a small moment of comfort to someone's day. I was an introvert, yes, but I valued depth, stability, the kind of relationships that were built on shared silence as much as shared laughter. I thought I had that in my life, in my friendships, in my quiet corner of the world. Then Elena walked in. She came into the roastery one drizzly Tuesday, all vibrant energy and bright, almost predatory charm, a splash of neon in my otherwise earthy, muted existence. She was an artist, she announced, her voice a melody of confident self-assertion, here to sample the local artisanal offerings. I remember the way she looked at me, not with curiosity, but with an almost immediate assessment, as if cataloging my potential, or perhaps my perceived shortcomings. She ordered a pour-over, specifically asking about the origin and roast profile, not out of genuine interest, I'd later realize, but to establish her own discerning palate. I, of course, was instantly disarmed. My quiet, ordered world had rarely encountered such a force. She was beautiful, yes, in a sharp, angular way, with eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets, and a laugh that could fill a room and make everyone else feel like an afterthought. We talked for hours that first day, then the next and the one after that. She spoke of her art, her grand visions, the superficiality of the Portland art scene, her ambition to shake things up. I, in turn, spoke of my coffee, my dreams of a small community art space where local artists could genuinely connect, away from the gallery politics. She listened, rapt, her gaze intense, making me feel as if every word I uttered was profound, revolutionary even. It was intoxicating. I hadn't realized how starved I was for that kind of intense, singular attention. Mark, my best friend since college, had always been my sounding board, my confidant. But with Elena it was different. It was electric. He'd always encouraged my art space idea, seeing its potential, but with Elena it felt like it could actually happen. There were whispers even then, soft murmurs in the back of my mind that I chose to ignore. She'd occasionally make a comment about my comfortable life, a life she deemed safe or boring. She'd call my passion for coffee sweet but not art, not like her art, which was edgy, challenging, boundary-pushing. I remember one evening early on she was talking about a difficult period in her life, a time of creative struggle, and she looked at me with a kind of pitying affection and said, "You wouldn't understand, Christopher. You've always had it so easy, so stable. You haven't truly suffered for your art." I laughed it off, trying to bridge the gap, saying that passion came in many forms. But a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. Was my quiet contentment a weakness? Was my stability a sign of a lack of ambition? I wanted to believe she was simply challenging me, pushing me to grow, to see the world beyond my carefully cultivated comfort zone. I wanted to be worthy of her intensity. The destabilization was gradual, almost imperceptible, like the slow erosion of a riverbank. Elena's presence in my life grew, consuming more and more space. She'd spend hours at the roastery, not necessarily helping, but holding court, critiquing my DCOR, my choice of music, even the mugs I used. "Christopher," she'd sigh, picking up a perfectly crafted ceramic mug, "this is so quaint. Don't you want something more impactful, something that screams art?" My coffee, my sanctuary, slowly began to feel inadequate through her eyes. What I once found comforting and authentic she painted as boring and uninspired. She had a way of framing her criticisms as deep, insightful observations designed to elevate me, and I, desperate to keep her attention, to prove myself worthy, began to see them that way too. I started trying to change. I bought new art for my walls, pieces she vaguely approved of. I changed the lighting in the roastery, hoping to make it less cozy and more gallery-esque. I found myself talking less about the nuances of a single origin roast and more about curating experiences, or sensory narratives, language I knew she admired. My conversations with Mark started shifting too. He noticed it. He'd ask, "Are you okay, man? You seem different, a little on edge." I'd dismiss it, saying Elena was just opening my eyes to new perspectives. But the truth was, I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells around her, desperate for her approval, terrified of her casual dismissal. Every time I brought up my own dream of a community art space, she'd nod vaguely, then pivot back to her own ambitious gallery plans, always grander, always more cutting edge. She'd say, "Christopher, your idea is sweet, truly, but it's so local, so safe. We need something bold, something that shakes the foundations," and I believed her, believed that my quiet passion wasn't enough. My own dreams, once vibrant and clear, began to feel small, pedestrian, even embarrassing in her brilliant, intimidating light. A dull ache settled in my chest, a constant pressure that told me I was somehow failing, not just her but myself. I was losing my footing, the ground beneath me turning soft and yielding. Then came the calls, or rather, the lack of them. Mark, my steadfast anchor, began to drift. He was always busy, always had an excuse. "Caught up at work," he'd say, "big project." "Oh yeah, sorry, I'm with someone right now, can't talk." It wasn't like him. We had a ritual, Friday night beers, a tradition going back 15 years. Suddenly those Fridays were often rescheduled or forgotten. When we did meet, his phone would constantly buzz, and he'd sneak glances at it, a faint smile playing on his lips. I asked him once, "Everything okay, man? You seem a little distracted." He just shrugged. "Just a lot going on, you know." "Exciting stuff," I pressed. "Anything I can help with?" He hesitated, then said, "Nah, not really your scene, Chris." The words felt like a physical barrier, a wall rising between us, constructed from his evasions and my growing unease. Elena, meanwhile, was even more evasive. She spoke of major breakthroughs in her art, exciting collaborations, but never offered specifics. She'd get calls too, stepping away to whisper into her phone, her eyes darting towards me as if ensuring I wasn't listening. A knot of dread began to tighten in my stomach. I was being left out, deliberately excluded from something important, something that felt connected to her vague pronouncements and Mark's sudden distance. I brushed it off as my introverted insecurity, telling myself they were just busy, that I shouldn't expect to be privy to every detail of their lives. But the feeling persisted, a cold, creeping certainty that I was missing something crucial, something deliberately hidden. My old dream of a community art space, the one I'd shared with Mark for years, felt more distant than ever, relegated to a wistful memory. Elena had dismissed it as uninspired, and Mark hadn't mentioned it in months. It was a phantom limb, a dream that had been amputated without my consent. The gaslighting was subtle at first, then became a cruel art form. Elena would contradict things I clearly remembered saying or doing, making me doubt my own memory. "You never mentioned that, Christopher," she'd say, her voice calm and absolute, even when I knew I had. Or, "You're overreacting, it was just a joke." I'd find myself questioning my own perceptions, my own sanity. My confidence, already eroded by her constant criticisms, began to crumble entirely. I was losing my grip on reality, on myself. I felt like I was shrinking, becoming a ghost in my own life, always trying to be what she wanted, always failing. Then came the moment, not a single event, but a slow, agonizing realization. I was browsing a local arts blog, something I still did out of habit, hoping to find small, independent artists to feature in my still-dreamed-of community space. And there it was, an announcement, a splashy digital flyer for The Collective Canvas, a new vision for community art. My breath caught in my throat, the tagline, the mission statement, the very spirit of it. It was my idea, word for word, emotion for emotion. But the names attached were Elena Moreau as the artistic director and Mark Jensen as the lead investor. My vision, my dream, my quiet passion, brought to life by the two people I had trusted most without my knowledge, without my involvement, without even a conversation. A cold wave of nausea washed over me, then a searing heat. My hands trembled, clutching the mouse. My vision blurred. It couldn't be. This had to be a mistake, a cruel joke. I reread the announcement, every word twisting the knife deeper. There were even quotes attributed to Elena, talking about the importance of nurturing local talent and creating an inclusive space for expression. Words I had used countless times to describe my own vision. Words she had once dismissed as quaint. The betrayal was a physical blow, a punch to the gut that left me gasping for air. The image of Mark's phone constantly buzzing, his evasive answers, Elena's whispered calls, it all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. THEY had been building this, my dream, right under my nose, behind my back, using my own ideas as their blueprint. I felt a profound, desolate emptiness, a void where trust and friendship once resided. The grand opening for the Collective Canvas was set for Saturday night. I almost didn't go. My initial reaction was to curl up in a ball and disappear, to let the world consume me. But a stubborn spark, a flicker of outrage, ignited in the hollow space where my heart used to be. I had to see it. I had to understand. I had to face them. The gallery was everything I had imagined, but twisted, perverted by their hands. It was buzzing with people, lights, the clinking of glasses. The art was vibrant, modern, a little too sleek. a little too polished for what I had envisioned as a truly grassroots space. But the layout, the deliberate choice of raw industrial elements mixed with natural wood, the open floor plan designed for fluid movement and interaction, it was all mine. My ideas, carefully planned out in countless notebooks, painstakingly articulated to Mark over late-night beers passionately shared with Elena during those early, intoxicating conversations. It was my ghost walking the halls of my dream. I spotted Elena first, naturally. She was in the center of a small crowd holding court, radiating confidence in a sharp black dress. Her laugh echoing through the space, she looked triumphant, radiant. Then I saw Mark beside her, looking slightly less comfortable but basking in her reflected glory, playing the part of the successful investor. A vein throbbed in my temple, my hands clenched, my knuckles turning white. The noise of the crowd, the music, the chatter, all became a dull roar in my ears. I walked towards them, each step heavy, deliberate, a strange calm settling over me amidst the storm raging inside. Elena saw me first. Her smile faltered just for a split second, a flicker of surprise, quickly replaced by a tight, practiced grin. "Christopher, what a surprise, so glad you could make it." Her voice was too bright, too casual. Mark turned, and his face, usually so open and friendly, drained of color. He looked like a caught schoolboy. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. My voice, when it came out, was surprisingly steady, quiet, but with an edge that cut through the pleasantries. I said, "Elena, Mark, what is this? This is my idea. My vision." Elena laughed, a dismissive tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Christopher, darling, don't be so dramatic. It's a gallery. Art spaces aren't exactly a revolutionary concept." My gaze was fixed on her, then flickered to Mark, who was now staring at his shoes. I said, "No, Elena, not an art space. This art space. The community focus, the raw aesthetic, the emphasis on local underexposed talent, away from the established galleries. The name, even, the collective canvas, I brainstormed that with Mark years ago." She sighed, a put-upon sigh, as if I was being utterly unreasonable. "Christopher, you're overreacting. You had a asterisk concept. I executed it. That's the difference between a dreamer and an artist with real ambition. You never seemed that passionate about art anyway. Not like me. You're a coffee man." Her words, the sheer audacity of them, hit me like a physical blow. Asterisk not that passionate. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had poured my soul into this idea, shared it with her, believed she understood, and she was dismissing it as a mere whim, something I wasn't truly committed to. It was textbook gaslighting, twisted and insidious. I turned to Mark, my voice shaking now, the careful composure cracking. "Mark, what about you? We talked about this for years. You said you'd help me find a space, help me fund it. How could you do this?" Mark finally looked up, his eyes avoiding mine, flickering nervously between me and Elena. He fidgeted with the cuff of his shirt. "Christopher, man, I just saw an opportunity. Elena had the drive, the vision to really make it happen. You never really seemed to push for it, you know. You're so comfortable in your coffee world. I thought you'd moved on from that old idea." "Moved on?" My voice was a strangled whisper. I had talked to him about it just months ago. He was the one who stopped responding. He was the one who became distant. It was a complete fabrication, a rewrite of history. The betrayal was complete, absolute. My best friend, the one person who truly knew me, who had seen my dreams, was standing there complicit, defending a lie, abandoning me for an opportunity. He had chosen ambition and Elena's approval over years of loyalty and shared history. The air in the gallery felt suffocating, the smiles of the guests, the clinking of glasses, Elena's triumphant gaze, Mark's cowardly evasion. It all converged into a single, overwhelming wave of pain and clarity. A cold, hard realization settled in. They weren't just stealing my idea, they were stealing my worth, my identity, trying to convince me that I was nothing without them, that my quiet passions were insignificant. But as I looked at them, their faces etched with a blend of self-satisfaction and discomfort, something shifted inside me. The years of doubt, the slow erosion of my self-esteem, the fear of not being enough, it all fell away, leaving behind a raw, burning core of anger, yes, but also a stark, liberating truth. This wasn't about me being boring. This was about them being manipulative, opportunistic, and fundamentally dishonest. I felt a sudden, profound calm. The noise of the gallery faded. I looked at Elena, really looked at her, and saw not the mesmerizing artist I had fallen for, but a calculating manipulator. I looked at Mark, and saw not my lifelong friend, but a hollow echo of the man I thought I knew. I took a deep breath, the scent of expensive wine and fake sincerity filling my lungs. I looked at the art on the walls, at the people mingling, at the dream they had stolen. It no longer felt like a loss, but a toxic thing I needed to purge from my life. I turned my back on them, on the gallery, on the entire charade. I walked out without another word, without looking back. The cool Portland night air hit my face, a blessed relief. Tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging, not just for the lost dream, but for the lost self, the wasted time, the shattered trust. I walked for hours, aimlessly at first, then with a growing purpose. The pain was immense, an ache that permeated every cell of my body, but beneath it a tiny defiant spark had ignited. I was done with trying to be someone I wasn't, done with seeking validation from people who saw me only as a means to their own ends, done with letting others define my worth. The days that followed were a blur of raw emotion. I locked myself away, processing the magnitude of the betrayal, the sheer audacity of it all. I cried until my eyes were swollen, screamed into pillows, and felt an emptiness so profound it was almost physical. But through the wreckage of my emotional collapse, a new resolve began to form, like fresh shoots pushing through scorched earth. I saw clearly now how I had allowed myself to be diminished, how I had abandoned my own integrity in the pursuit of someone else's approval. It was a painful awakening, but a necessary one. The first step was the hardest. I called my business partner at the roastery, told him I wanted to sell my stake. It was a shock to him, but I explained simply that I needed a change, a fresh start. It was more than just leaving a business. It was severing ties with the last vestiges of the life Elena had scorned. It was letting go of the comfortable existence she had mocked, not because I agreed with her, but because I needed to redefine comfort on my own terms, away from her shadow. The process was surprisingly quick. The roastery was successful, and my partner bought me out, giving me the financial freedom I needed. With that fresh capital, I started quietly. No grand announcements, no flashy openings. I found a small, neglected warehouse space on the edge of town, far from the trendy Pearl District where Elena's gallery now thrived. I poured my energy, my vision, and my heart into creating the *True* community art space I had always dreamed of. This time there was no Elena to criticize, no Mark to betray. It was just me, guided by my own quiet integrity. I called it the Seed and Soil Collective, a place where genuine creativity could take root and flourish. Away from the performative art scene, I focused on local talent, on nurturing emerging artists who genuinely loved their craft, not just the spotlight. I sought out those who, like me, valued authenticity over flash, connection over competition. The process of building the Seed and Soil Collective was intensely healing. Every nail hammered, every wall painted, every conversation with a passionate local artist was a step towards reclaiming myself. I rediscovered the quiet joy of creation, the satisfaction of fostering something beautiful and real. I found solace in genuine connections, in the shared laughter and serious discussions with artists who weren't trying to tear each other down but lift each other up. It's been almost 2 years since I walked out of that gallery. Elena and Mark are still out there, their collective canvas probably still buzzing with the kind of ambition I once mistakenly admired. I haven't seen them, haven't heard from them, and I don't look back. The memory of the betrayal still stings sometimes, a phantom ache that reminds me of how deep the wound went, but it no longer defines me. I am no longer the man who sought external validation, who allowed his dreams to be belittled and stolen. I am Christopher, the man who cultivates quiet strength, who believes in the power of genuine connection, who nurtures art not for fame, but for the pure joy of creation. I am still introverted, still value stability, but now I know the difference between comfort and complacency, between quiet passion and lack of ambition. My worth isn't tied to their validation, but to my own steadfast integrity. I have built a sanctuary, not just for others, but for myself, and in this quiet, honest space I am finally truly free.